I couldn't breathe. Not because I was scared, but because something inside my chest refused to move with me. Every inhale stopped halfway, like my body had forgotten how to survive. The bathroom floor was cold against my cheek, tile pressing into my skin as the shower above me kept dripping in slow, hollow beats. 1 drop. 2. 3. Time stretched into something heavy and broken. My phone was still in my hand. I didn't remember picking it up. I didn't remember unlocking it. But there it was, screen glowing too bright in the dim light, my reflection faint and distorted across the glass. I looked like someone else. Someone I didn't recognize. My fingers trembled as I typed, each word taking more effort than it should have. He broke my ribs. I paused, swallowing against the metallic taste in my mouth. My lungs burned again. I forced another breath. I can't breathe. I stared at the message. It was supposed to go to my best friend, Kayla. The only person who still picked up when I called. The only one who knew enough to understand what those words meant without asking questions I didn't have the strength to answer. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I hit send. The message whooshed away. Gone. Just like that. I let my head fall back against the tile, closing my eyes for half a second too long. The room tilted. The silence pressed in. Then my phone buzzed. Once. Sharp. Immediate. My eyes snapped open. That was too fast. Kayla never replied that fast. Not this late. Not at 1:43 in the morning. My heart stuttered. Then picked up too fast, too uneven. I dragged the phone closer, vision blurring for a second before it cleared. Unknown number. 3 gray dots blinked on the screen. Typing. Stopping. Typing again. My breath caught. Not from pain this time, but from something colder. Something unfamiliar. The message came through. 1 word. Location. I frowned. Confusion cutting through the haze. That wasn't Kayla. That wasn't anyone I knew. My fingers hovered over the keyboard again, slower this time. Careful. Who is this? I typed. The reply came instantly. Send your location. No name. No explanation. Just that. Short. Controlled. Like a command that didn't need repeating. My chest tightened again, and I let out a shaky breath that barely filled my lungs. This was a mistake. I had texted the wrong number. I should have ignored it. Thrown the phone across the room. Called 911. Done anything normal. But nothing about tonight felt normal anymore. The apartment was too quiet. Too still. Like it was holding its breath with me. I could hear the faint creak of the hallway floorboards outside the bathroom. A sound I knew too well. He was still here. Moving. Waiting. My pulse spiked. My fingers moved before my brain could catch up. I tapped the screen. Sent my location. The 3 dots came back immediately. No hesitation. No delay. Don't move. My throat tightened. Another message followed. I'm coming. I stared at the words, trying to process them through the fog in my head. Coming? Who was coming? And why did it feel like those 2 words carried more weight than anything I'd heard all night? The hallway creaked again. Closer this time. I froze. My body didn't need the instruction. It had already decided. My phone slipped slightly in my grip, slick against my palm. I tightened my hold, holding it against my chest like it could somehow anchor me to something real. Something safe. The doorknob rattled. Once. Slowly. Testing. My breath hitched, sharp, shallow. I squeezed my eyes shut for half a second, willing myself not to panic. Not to make a sound. The messages on my screen burned behind my eyelids. Don't move. I'm coming. The handle stopped moving. Silence again. Thick. Heavy. The kind that made every second feel louder than the last. I didn't know who was on the other end of that phone. I didn't know why they answered. Or why they cared enough to come. But something deep in my chest, beneath the pain, beneath the fear, shifted. Just slightly. Like a crack of light through something that had been sealed shut for too long. My phone buzzed one more time. I forced my eyes open, barely moving as I glanced down. Another message. Stay alive. My fingers tightened around the phone. Outside the door, the floor creaked again. And this time, it didn't stop. I counted my breaths, because it was the only thing I could control. 1 a shallow. 2 shaking. 3 barely there. Each inhale felt like it stopped halfway down, like my lungs had decided they were done trying. The bathroom air was thick, humid from the shower that never fully turned off, and every drop hitting the tub sounded louder than it should have. I focused on that sound instead of the hallway. Instead of the footsteps. Instead of him. My phone rested against my chest, the screen dimming and lighting up again as another notification flickered. I forced my eyes down, moving slowly so the movement would not echo through the silence. Another message. I am close. My heart skipped, then slammed hard enough to make my ribs protest. Close. What did that even mean? Across the street. Across the city. Across my imagination. I did not know. But the certainty in those words did something to me. It did not calm me. Not exactly. It sharpened everything. The fear. The awareness. The space between each second. The doorknob turned again. This time slower. Careful. Like whoever was on the other side was thinking. Listening. Deciding. I held my breath without meaning to, my entire body going still in a way that felt unnatural, like I had stepped outside of myself and left only a shadow behind. The handle stopped halfway. A pause. Then a soft knock. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just enough to remind me that the door between us was not as solid as I wanted it to be. Amara. His voice came through the wood, lower than before. Controlled. That was always the worst part. Not the volume. Not the words. The control. Like everything he did was measured. Intentional. I swallowed. The motion small but painful. My name sounded different coming from the other side of that door. Like it did not belong to me anymore. I did not answer. I could not. My fingers curled tighter around my phone, pressing it into my chest like I could disappear into it. Another buzz. I almost flinched. Stay with me. The message glowed on the screen. I stared at it, my vision blurring for a second before it cleared again. Stay with me. Not stay quiet. Not stay hidden. Stay with me. Like he was somewhere I could reach. Like I was not alone in this room, even though I could feel every inch of it pressing in on me. The floor creaked again outside. A shift of weight. Then silence. I strained to listen, every sense stretching thin. Nothing. No footsteps. No voice. Just the steady drip of water and the uneven rhythm of my own breathing. Seconds passed. Or minutes. I could not tell anymore. Time had folded in on itself, each moment blending into the next. My phone buzzed again. Do you hear anything? I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. My hands were still shaking, but the movement was different now. Less frantic. More focused. I typed slowly, careful not to make a sound. He is outside. I stared at the words before hitting send, like they might change if I waited long enough. They did not. The message went through. Delivered. Seen. 3 dots appeared instantly. Door locked. I glanced at the handle. I had locked it when I stumbled in here. I remembered that now. A small detail that suddenly felt like the only thing between me and something I could not control. Yes, I typed. My thumb hovered again, then added, he is quiet. The reply came faster than I could process. Good. A pause. Then another message. Listen to me carefully. My chest tightened again, but this time it was not just the pain. It was the tone, the shift, the way the words felt like they were holding something back. Something bigger. Do not open that door. No matter what you hear. My eyes flicked to the handle again. It had not moved. But the idea of it moving, of it turning slowly while I watched, sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the cold tile beneath my body. Another message followed. I am 2 minutes away. 2 minutes. My mind tried to wrap around it and failed. 2 minutes could be nothing. Or everything. 2 minutes could change nothing. Or it could change everything. Outside, something shifted again. A step. Closer this time. The shadow under the door moved, just enough for me to see it. My breath caught, sharp and shallow. Amara. His voice again. Softer now. Almost patient. Open the door. I squeezed my eyes shut, my head pressing harder against the tile. My fingers tightened around the phone until my knuckles ached. Another buzz. Do not answer him. I opened my eyes again, staring at the screen like it was the only real thing in the room. I am here. My heart jumped. Here. Not close. Not coming. Here. For a second, nothing happened. The air stayed the same. The silence held. Then, somewhere beyond the bathroom, I heard it. Not loud. Not obvious. But different. A sound that did not belong to this apartment. A door opening that was not mine. Footsteps that were not his. Controlled. Precise. The kind that did not hesitate. My pulse raced, but the panic did not spike the way it had before. It shifted, twisted into something else. Something sharper. Something that felt like the moment before a storm breaks, when the air changes and you know something is coming even if you cannot see it yet. Outside my door, the silence cracked. Not with noise. Not with chaos. Just absence. Like whatever had been there was no longer the same. My phone buzzed one last time. I looked down, my breath catching again as the message appeared. You are safe now. I did not move. I did not breathe. Because for the first time all night, I believed it. I did not realize how loud silence could be until it replaced fear. It pressed against my ears, thick and unfamiliar, like the world had shifted while I was not looking. My body still refused to move, every muscle locked in place as if it did not trust what my mind was beginning to accept. Safe. The word echoed, fragile, uncertain. I stared at the door, waiting for it to move, for the handle to turn, for something to break the stillness and prove this was not real. Nothing happened. The shadow under the door was gone. Not moved. Gone. Like it had never been there. My phone was still warm in my hand. I looked down slowly, my breath catching again as the last message remained on the screen. You are safe now. My fingers tightened around the edges, grounding myself in something solid. I did not know his name. I did not know his face. But somehow, I knew that message was not a guess. It was a statement. A decision that had already been made. A soft sound came from the other side of the door. Not a knock. Not a voice. Just the faint shift of something heavy moving away. Then footsteps. Controlled. Measured. Not rushed. Not uncertain. The kind of steps that did not need to hurry because they already owned the outcome. My chest rose slightly, a shallow inhale that did not hurt as sharply as before. I noticed it immediately. The difference. Small. Barely there. But real. I could breathe a little more than I could a minute ago. My body was catching up to something my mind had not fully processed yet. I stayed on the floor for a few more seconds, maybe longer, counting again. 1, 2, 3. This time, the air came in a little deeper. Not enough, but more. My hand moved slowly, bracing against the tile as I shifted my weight. The world tilted for a second, darkening at the edges, and I froze again until it steadied. Then I pushed up just enough to sit. The movement sent a sharp reminder through my ribs, but I clenched my jaw and held it there, refusing to let the pain pull me back down. The room looked different from this angle. Smaller. Less like a place I was trapped in, and more like a place I could leave. My phone buzzed again. I flinched this time, the reaction automatic, before I forced myself to look. Can you stand? I swallowed, considering the question like it was more complicated than it should be. Could I? I did not know. I had not tried. My body felt like it belonged to someone else, disconnected and unreliable. But the question was not just about standing. It was about moving forward. About not staying here. I shifted again, testing the weight on my legs. They held. Barely. But they held. Yes, I typed slower this time. Honest. The reply came immediately. Good. Open the door. My eyes snapped to the handle again. The same door I had been afraid to look at minutes ago. The same barrier that had felt like the only thing keeping me alive. Now I was supposed to open it. My chest tightened again, hesitation creeping back in. What if he was still there? What if this was wrong? What if I misunderstood everything? My thumb hovered over the screen. Another message appeared before I could type anything. He is gone. Gone. Not outside. Not waiting. Gone. The certainty in those words felt heavier than anything else. I stared at the door for a long second, then another. My hand lifted slowly, pressing against the wall for support as I pulled myself up. The motion was uneven, my balance shifting as I forced my body to cooperate. When I finally stood, it felt unreal. Like I had crossed some invisible line. The handle was only a few steps away. 3 feet. Maybe 4. It felt like a mile. Each step was careful. Measured. My breathing uneven but stronger than before. I reached the door and paused, my hand hovering just inches from the handle. This was the moment. The choice. Stay in here where I knew the fear. Or open it, and step into something I did not understand yet. My fingers closed around the metal. It was cold. Solid. Real. I turned it slowly. The click sounded louder than it should have. The door opened just a crack. I held it there, peeking through the narrow space like I expected something to jump out at me. Nothing did. The hallway light spilled in, soft and steady. The apartment looked the same. Furniture in place. Walls untouched. But the air felt different. Lighter. Like something heavy had been removed. I opened the door wider, stepping out slowly. My legs trembled, but they moved. And then I saw them. 2 men near the entrance. Dark suits. Still. Silent. Not looking at me like I was a problem. Not looking at me at all. They were watching the space. The exits. Everything except me. My breath caught again, But this time it was not fear. It was something else. Something closer to disbelief. One of them shifted slightly, just enough to acknowledge me without turning his head. Then he spoke, his voice low and calm. He is waiting. Waiting. The words settled into me. Unfamiliar, but steady. I swallowed, my grip tightening around my phone as I took another step forward. I did not know who he was. I did not know why he came. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I had not been saved by accident. And whoever was waiting for me had already decided I was not leaving alone. I did not expect the world outside that bathroom to feel this still. Not quiet. Still. Like everything had already been decided before I stepped into it. The two men by the door did not move when I took another step forward, but I felt it. The way their attention shifted without turning, without looking directly at me. They knew exactly where I was. They just did not need to show it. My hand tightened around my phone. The screen dimmed now. The last message still burned into my mind more. Then the glass beneath my fingers. He is waiting. Waiting where? Waiting how? Waiting for what? My feet moved anyway. Slow. Careful. Each step measured like the floor might disappear if I trusted it too much. The apartment looked untouched, but I could feel the difference in the air. The weight that had filled it before was gone. Not lighter. Just cleared. Like something had been removed without leaving a trace. The man closest to the door finally turned his head slightly, just enough for me to catch the edge of his profile. Calm. Controlled. Not curious. Not concerned. This way, he said quietly, his voice steady, like he had said those words 100 times before and never once needed to repeat them. I hesitated for half a second, my eyes flicking toward the hallway behind me. The bathroom door was still open. The light still on. The place where I had been on the floor just minutes ago felt far away now. Like it belonged to someone else. I swallowed and nodded once, even though he was not looking at me anymore. My body followed before my mind caught up. They moved first. Not rushed. Not cautious. Just certain. The door opened before they touched it, one of them stepping aside to let me pass through first. The hallway outside my apartment felt colder. Cleaner. The air sharper in my lungs. Even with the shallow breaths I could manage. I stepped out, my balance shifting for a second before I steadied myself against the wall. The building was quiet. Too quiet for this time of night. No voices. No televisions. No footsteps from neighbors who usually never slept. It felt like the entire floor had been emptied without anyone noticing. Keep moving. The second man said softly. Not a command, not a push, just a direction that did not allow for hesitation. I moved. Down the hallway. Past doors that all looked the same, but suddenly felt like they belonged to a different world than mine. The elevator was already open when we reached it. Waiting. Like everything else. I stepped inside, the men following without a word. The doors closed smoothly, sealing us into a space that felt smaller than it should have. I watched the numbers light up as we descended. 4, 3, 2, each second stretching just enough for me to feel it. My reflection in the metal walls looked pale, unsteady, but my eyes were different. Focused in a way they had not been before. Like something inside me had shifted without asking permission. The elevator reached the ground floor with a soft chime. The doors opened. And for the first time that night, I saw something that did not belong to my world at all. Black vehicles lined the curb outside. Engines running. Lights low. The kind of presence that did not need noise to be noticed. People stepped aside without being asked. The space cleared before anyone even reached the sidewalk. I stopped just inside the lobby, my breath catching again, not from pain this time, but from the weight of what I was looking at. This was not random. This was not someone passing by. This was intentional, precise, planned. One of the men beside me stepped forward, opening the glass door like it was the most natural thing in the world. He is inside, he said. My eyes followed his gesture. The center vehicle, larger than the others. Darker. Still. I hesitated again, my feet refusing to move for 1 second too long. Inside that car was a stranger. A voice on a screen. A decision I had not agreed to but somehow already belonged to. My phone buzzed in my hand. The sound snapped through the moment like a thread pulling everything back into place. I looked down. One new message. Walk to me. My chest tightened, but not in fear. Not the same kind. This was something else. Something heavier. Something that felt like standing on the edge of something I could not see yet. I lifted my head again, my gaze locking onto the vehicle. The door was already opening. Slowly. Deliberately. Like it knew I was watching. like it had been waiting for me to notice. The inside was dark at first. Then a figure shifted, just enough for the light from the street to catch the edge of his face. I could not see everything. Just enough. Sharp lines. Stillness. Control. The kind that did not need to prove itself. My breath hitched, shallow but steady. Every instinct I had should have told me to stop. To turn around. To go back upstairs and pretend none of this happened. But my feet moved anyway. One step. Then another. The distance between us closed faster than I expected, like the space itself was folding in. By the time I reached the car, the door was fully open. Waiting. He did not speak. Not yet. His eyes found mine first. And in that single moment, everything in me stilled again. Not from fear. From recognition. Not of him. But of what he was. Power. Quiet. Absolute. I stood there, just outside the door, my hand tightening around my phone like it was the last piece of the life I understood. His voice came then. Low. Even. Certain. You took your time. Not accusation. Not impatience. Just a statement. Like time had never been the issue. My lips parted, but no sound came out. I did not know what to say. I did not even know what question to ask first. Who are you? Why are you here? What did you do? None of it felt right. None of it felt enough. He watched me for a second longer, then shifted slightly, making space inside the car without breaking eye contact. An invitation. Or something closer to a decision already made. Get in, he said quietly. My heart beat once. Hard. Then again. And for the first time that night, I realized I was not just stepping away from something. I was stepping into something I would not be able to walk away from. The space inside the car felt warmer than the night air, but not softer. Controlled. Every inch of it deliberate. I hesitated at the edge for half a second longer, my fingers tightening around my phone as if it could still pull me back to something familiar. It could not. Nothing about tonight was familiar anymore. I stepped in. Slow. Careful. The movement sent a dull reminder through my ribs, but I did not stop. I could not afford to. Not now. Not with him watching me like that. The door closed behind me with a quiet, final sound. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just sealed. I felt it more than I heard it. The shift. The separation. Outside and inside were not the same world anymore. He did not move right away. He did not speak either. He just watched me. Not in a way that made me shrink. Not in a way that made me feel small. It was something else. Measured. Observing. Like he was putting pieces together I did not even know existed. I sat across from him, my back straight only because I did not trust myself to lean into anything yet. The seat was soft, but I did not relax into it. My body stayed alert, even through the exhaustion, even through the pain. His eyes moved once, briefly, from my face to the way I held myself. The way my breath caught halfway. The way my hand pressed lightly against my side without me realizing it. He noticed everything. That much was clear. The car started moving. Smooth. Quiet. No sudden shifts. No unnecessary sound. I glanced toward the window, watching the building disappear behind us, the streetlights stretching into blurred lines as we picked up speed. No one spoke. Not the driver. Not the men in the front. Not him. The silence was not empty. It was controlled. Like every word that would be said had already been decided and did not need to be rushed. My phone buzzed softly in my hand. I looked down without thinking. No new message. Just the screen lighting up from my grip. When I looked back up, his gaze was already on it. Then on me again. You text fast for someone who cannot breathe, he said finally, his voice low and even. There was no humor in it. No judgment either. Just observation. I swallowed, my throat dry. I thought it was my friend, I said quietly. My voice sounded different. Smaller than I wanted it to. He nodded once. Not surprised. Not impressed. Just accepting the information. And instead, you reached me. There was a weight in the way he said that. Not coincidence. Not chance. Like the outcome mattered more than the mistake. I looked at him fully then, forcing myself not to look away. Who are you? The question came out steadier than I expected. He did not answer right away. His gaze held mine for a second longer, like he was deciding how much I needed to know, or how much I could handle. Someone who answers when it matters, he said finally. Not a name. Not an explanation. Just enough to close the question without really answering it. I exhaled slowly, the breath catching halfway again before I forced it to continue. And him? I did not say the name. I did not need to. His eyes shifted slightly, just enough to acknowledge the direction of the question. He will not be a problem for you again. The words were simple, quiet, but there was no doubt in them. Not even a trace. I searched his face for something. Anything that would tell me how he knew that. What that meant. There was nothing there to read. Just certainty. My chest tightened again, but this time it was not fear. It was something else. Something closer to disbelief. You do not even know me? I said. He leaned back slightly, just enough to change the angle between us without breaking eye contact. I know enough. My fingers tightened around my phone again, grounding myself. Enough to do all of this. I gestured slightly, the movement small but deliberate. The car, the men, the way the entire building had gone silent. He followed the gesture, then looked back at me. You asked for help. I shook my head slightly, the motion slow. I sent a text. You said you could not breathe. His voice did not rise. It did not change, but something in it settled deeper. That is not a message people ignore. People. Not him. People. I caught that. My breath came a little easier now. Still shallow. Still uneven. But steadier than before. Most people would, I said quietly. He studied me for a second, something unreadable passing through his expression before it settled again. I am not most people. The car turned smoothly, the city outside shifting into something less familiar. Fewer lights. Wider streets. Space where there had been none before. I watched it for a second, then looked back at him. Where are we going? He did not hesitate this time. Somewhere you can breathe. The answer was simple, direct, and for some reason, I believed him. Not because I understood him, not because I trusted him completely, but because everything he had said so far had already become true before I could question it. My body shifted slightly, the tension in my shoulders loosening just enough for me to notice. The pain was still there, the exhaustion heavier now that the fear had pulled back. My eyes flickered closed for a second, then opened again. He was still watching me. Not closely, not intensely, just present, like he was making sure I did not disappear between one breath and the next. What happens now? I asked, the question quieter than the ones before it. He did not answer right away. His gaze moved briefly toward the window, then back to me. Measuring. Deciding. Now, he said slowly, you rest. The simplicity of it almost caught me off guard. Rest. Like it was that easy. Like I could just stop. My fingers loosened slightly around my phone, the tension slipping just a fraction. And after that, I asked. He held my gaze, the silence stretching just enough to make the next words matter more. After that, he said, we decide who you are without him. The words settled into me in a way I was not prepared for. Not loud, not overwhelming, just deep, like something had been unlocked without me realizing it was there. I looked down at my hands, then back at him. For the first time that night, the question in my mind was not about what I had escaped. It was about what I had stepped into. And somehow, that felt even bigger. Rest sounded simple when he said it. Like it was something I could just decide to do. Like my body would listen. It did not. Not right away. The car moved smoothly through streets I did not recognize, the city thinning out into wider roads, quieter blocks, buildings that looked like they belonged to people who did not worry about noise or neighbors or survival. I watched it all through the window, my reflection faint against the glass, eyes darker than they had been a few hours ago. Everything felt slower now. Not safer yet, just slower. My breathing had steadied enough that I could take a full inhale if I focused, but it still caught at the edges, like my body was testing each breath before allowing it. He noticed. Of course he did. Lean back, he said quietly. I hesitated, my shoulders stiff. He did not repeat it. He did not need to. I shifted carefully, letting my back rest against the seat. The movement sent a dull pressure through my ribs, but it was manageable. Different from before. Less sharp. More contained. He reached forward slightly, not touching me, just adjusting something on the console. The temperature in the car changed almost immediately, warmer, steadier. Slow breaths, he added. Not a command. Not a suggestion. Just a fact, like gravity or time. I followed it without thinking. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. The rhythm came easier with each repetition, like my body was remembering something it had forgotten under pressure. The silence returned, but it was not the same as before. It did not press. It held. The car turned again, slower this time, the motion almost unnoticeable except for the way the lights outside shifted. Then we stopped. The engine stayed running, but everything else stilled. I looked up, my focus sharpening despite the fatigue. We were in front of a building I had never seen before. Tall, clean lines, glass and stone that reflected the city lights without letting anything inside be seen. No sign, no name, just presence. One of the men in the front stepped out first. The door opened for me a second later. I did not move right away. My body had just started to settle, and the idea of standing again felt like asking too much too soon. He noticed that too. "Take your time," he said. The words were simple, but they carried something else. Permission, not something I was used to. I nodded slightly, more to myself than to him, and shifted forward. My legs felt steadier than before, though not by much. I stepped out of the car, the cool night air brushing against my skin, grounding me in a way the enclosed space had not. The building loomed above me, quiet and watchful. The entrance opened before anyone touched it. Of course it did. Everything tonight seemed to move before it was asked to. Inside, the air was different. Cleaner. Controlled. The kind of space that did not allow chaos to exist. Marble floors. Soft lighting. No noise except the faint echo of our steps. I moved slowly, aware of every inch of my body now that the adrenaline had faded. Each step reminded me of where I had been, but it also reminded me that I was not there anymore. An elevator waited at the far end of the lobby. Already open. Waiting. We stepped inside. The doors closed without a sound. The ride up was smooth, almost weightless. I leaned slightly against the wall, my energy slipping in small, quiet waves. He stood beside me, not too close, not distant either. Just within reach if needed. Always within reach. The doors opened onto a hallway that did not feel like a hallway. More like an extension of the space. Below. Quiet. Private. The kind of place where footsteps did not echo because they were not meant to be heard. A door opened ahead of us. No knock. No pause. Just open. I stepped inside and stopped. The room was larger than my entire apartment. Warm light. Soft furniture. Clean lines. No clutter. No signs of anyone living in it. And yet everything felt prepared. Ready. For me. That realization hit deeper than I expected. Not because of the space, but because of what it meant. This had not been arranged after my message. This had existed before I even knew I would need it. He moved past me, setting something down on a table I had not noticed before. A glass of water. I did not see him pour it. It was just there. Like everything else tonight. "Sit," he said quietly. I obeyed without thinking, lowering myself onto the edge of the couch. The cushions gave slightly under my weight, supporting me in a way that made my body realize just how tired it was. The exhaustion hit all at once. Heavy. Immediate. My hands rested in my lap, still holding my phone, though I had forgotten it was there. He crouched slightly in front of me, not close enough to invade my space, but close enough that I did not have to look far to see him. "Drink," he said, nodding toward the glass. I reached for it, my fingers unsteady but cooperative. The water was cool, grounding real. I took a small sip, then another, my throat easing with each swallow. He watched until I set it down. Not impatient, not demanding, just making sure. "There is a doctor on the way," he said. My eyes lifted to his immediately. "I do not need." "You do," he interrupted, not harsh, not raised, just certain. I stopped, because I knew he was right. My body knew it before my pride could argue. I looked away, my gaze settling on nothing in particular. "Why?" The question came out softer than I intended. He did not ask what I meant. He understood. Of course he did. "Because you asked for help," he said simply. I shook my head slightly. "That is not enough." His gaze held mine again, steady, unmovable. It was enough for me. The words settled into the room, into me, into something I had not named. Yet, I looked down at my hands, at the phone still resting there, at the message that had started all of this. One mistake. One wrong number. And now this. I lifted my head slowly, meeting his eyes again. "What do you want from me?" The question hung there, heavier than the others. Not fear. Not accusation. Just truth. He did not answer right away. His expression did not change, but something behind it shifted. Measured. Calculated. Honest. "Nothing you are not willing to give," he said finally. My breath caught, not from pain this time. From the weight of that answer. Because for the first time that night, I realized I had already given him something, and I did not know how to take it back. The room felt too calm for what I had just left behind. Too clean. Too controlled. Like nothing in here had ever been out of place. I sat there, hands still wrapped loosely around my phone, trying to understand how I had gone from cold tile and broken breath to this. Soft light, steady air, and a man who spoke like everything was already decided. His words stayed with me. Nothing you are not willing to give. I did not know if that was meant to reassure me or warn me. Maybe both. The silence stretched again, but it did not feel empty. It felt like space. Space I had not had in a long time. My shoulders lowered without me noticing. My grip on the phone loosened. For the first time that night, I was not bracing for something. I was just sitting, breathing. He stood then, slow, deliberate, moving with the same quiet control that had defined everything about him so far. No wasted motion. No unnecessary sound. He walked a few steps away, giving me distance without turning his back completely. Always aware. Always present. You can put that down, he said, glancing briefly at my phone. I looked at it like I had forgotten it was there. The screen was dark now. No new messages, no missed calls. Nothing from the world I had left behind. I placed it carefully on the table beside me, my fingers lingering for a second before letting go. It felt strange. Letting go of the only thing that had connected me to someone outside this room. Outside him. The quiet settled deeper. My breathing steadied further, each inhale coming a little easier than the last. Not perfect, not painless, but manageable. He noticed that too. Of course he did. Better, he said softly, more to himself than to me. I nodded without thinking. A little. My voice sounded different now. Not as tight. Not as fragile. Still tired. Still careful. But stronger. He turned back toward me fully then, his gaze settling again, measuring something I could not see. Not judging. Just assessing. Like he was making sure I was still here. Still present. A soft knock came at the door. Not loud. Not urgent. Just enough to be heard. He did not look surprised. He did not ask who it was. Come in, he said calmly. The door opened almost immediately, and a man stepped inside carrying a small case. Older. Focused. His movements precise, professional. He did not look at me first. He looked at him. A silent acknowledgement passed between them before the man's attention shifted to me. Miss Hayes, he said gently. My last name. My chest tightened again, but not in pain. In awareness. How do you? I started but stopped. Of course he knew. Of course this man knew too. Nothing about tonight had left room for surprise anymore. May I? The man asked, gesturing toward me, his tone calm, respectful. Not assuming. Not forcing. I hesitated for a fraction of a second, my eyes flicking to the man beside me. He did not speak. He did not nod. He did not need to. His gaze held mine, steady, giving me the choice without saying it out loud. That mattered more than I expected. I nodded once. Okay. The doctor moved closer, setting his case down carefully. His presence was different. Not heavy. Not controlled in the same way. Focused on me. On what I needed. He asked simple questions. Where it hurt. When it started. How it felt. I answered as best as I could, my voice steadying with each response. He listened. Really listened. His hands were careful, his movements slow, never sudden. Every touch preceded by a warning, a question. Respect. Something I had not realized I was missing until it was there. I watched the man across the room as this happened. He stayed where he was. Not interfering. Not hovering. Just watching. Making sure nothing crossed a line I did not agree to. The difference between control and protection became clearer with every second. The doctor finished his initial assessment, stepping back slightly. You are going to be okay, he said, his voice reassuring but grounded. Not false comfort. Real. You need rest. And time. But you are going to be okay. The words settled into me in a way I did not expect. Okay. I had not thought that far ahead yet. I had only been thinking about getting through the next breath. The next minute. Not okay. The doctor turned slightly toward him, speaking quietly, professional, outlining what I needed. Care. Monitoring. Time. He listened without interrupting, his attention sharp, absorbing every detail like it mattered. Like I mattered. When the doctor finished, he nodded once. Make sure everything is arranged, he said simply. It was not a suggestion. The doctor nodded back, already moving to follow through. Efficient. Immediate. The room shifted again once the doctor stepped away, the focus returning to just the two of us. He moved closer this time, stopping just in front of me. Not too close. Never too close. You will stay here tonight, he said. Not a question. A decision. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out right away. Because I realized something in that moment. I did not want to go back. Not to the apartment. Not to the life waiting there. Not to the version of myself that had accepted things I should not have. Okay, I said finally. The word felt heavier than it should have. Like it meant more than just tonight. His gaze softened just slightly. Not enough to change his expression. Just enough to shift the weight behind it. You are safe here, he said. I believed him. Not because I had to. Not because I had no other option. But because everything in me recognized the truth in it. I leaned back slowly, the exhaustion catching up again now that there was nothing pushing it away. My eyes grew heavier, my body finally allowing itself to feel what it had been holding back. The room blurred slightly at the edges, the light softening, the space around me quiet and steady. The last thing I saw before my eyes closed was him still standing there. Watching. Not leaving. Not turning away. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I fell asleep. Without listening for footsteps. I woke up because nothing hurt for a second. That was the first thing I noticed. Not fear. Not noise. Not the weight in my chest. Just absence. Then it came back. Not sharp. Not crushing. Just there. A dull reminder under my ribs, like my body was whispering instead of screaming. I stayed still, eyes closed, trying to understand where I was before I let myself see it. The air felt different. Cooler. Cleaner. Not the heavy, stale air of my apartment. My fingers shifted slightly against something soft. Fabric. Smooth. Not tile. Not cold. My eyes opened slowly. The ceiling above me was unfamiliar. High. Clean lines. Soft light filtering in from somewhere I could not immediately place. For a second, my mind tried to pull me back. To the bathroom. To the floor. To the sound of water dripping and the tightness in my lungs. But that memory felt distant now. Like it belonged to a version of me that was already fading. I inhaled carefully. The breath came in deeper than before. Still cautious. Still controlled. But it did not stop halfway anymore. I let it out slowly, watching the rise and fall of my chest like I needed proof that it was real. You are safe here. His voice echoed in my mind. Quiet. Certain. I pushed myself up slightly, the movement slow, deliberate. My body resisted at first, then followed. The room came into focus around me, larger than I remembered. Or maybe I had just been too exhausted to notice before. A blanket rested over me. I did not remember pulling it there. Someone else had. The realization settled softly, not alarming. Just present. I looked toward the window. Morning light. Pale. Early. The city outside looked distant from up here, like I was watching it instead of being part of it. That felt strange. My phone sat on the table beside me. Exactly where I had left it. Untouched. No missed calls. No messages. No noise from the life I had stepped out of. I reached for it slowly, my fingers wrapping around it out of habit more than need. The screen lit up. Nothing new. Silence. I should have felt something about that. Relief. Anxiety. Guilt. But all I felt was space. A soft sound came from somewhere behind me. Not loud. Not sudden. Just enough to remind me I was not alone. I turned my head carefully, my body following a second later. He was there, sitting in a chair near the far side of the room, one leg crossed over the other, posture relaxed but not careless. Awake. Watching. Not in a way that startled me. Not anymore. My breath caught for a second, then steadied again. You are awake, he said. His voice was the same. Low. Even. Like nothing had changed. But something had. I nodded slightly, my fingers tightening around my phone for a second before loosening again. I did not mean to. I started, my voice quiet, unsure. He tilted his head slightly. To what? I swallowed. Stay. The word felt strange. Like it carried more weight than just sleeping in a room that was not mine. His expression did not change, but something behind it shifted. Subtle. Measured. You did not stay, he said. You rested. The correction landed softly, but it mattered. I felt it. The difference between choosing to remain and being allowed to recover. I nodded again, slower this time. It felt like staying. He watched me for a second longer, then leaned back slightly in his chair. That is because you have not had a place to rest in a long time. The truth in that statement settled deeper than I expected. I looked away for a second, my gaze drifting toward the window again. The city moved like it always did. Cars. People. Life continuing without pause. But I was not in it. Not right now. How long was I asleep? I asked. 6 hours, he said. 6 hours. I could not remember the last time I had slept that long without waking up to something. Noise. Fear. Tension. I let out a slow breath, the realization sinking in. I did not hear anything. You were not meant to. I looked back at him, my brow tightening slightly. You stayed? The question came out before I could stop it. Not accusing. Not demanding. Just needing to know. He did not answer right away. His gaze held mine, steady, unreadable. Then he nodded once. Yes. The simplicity of it caught me off guard. No explanation. No justification. Just yes. I looked down at my hands again, my fingers tracing the edge of my phone without thinking. Something shifted inside me. Not fear. Not doubt. Something quieter. Something I did not have a name for yet. You did not have to, I said softly. His response came just as quietly. I know. The words hung there for a second, filling the space between us in a way that felt heavier than anything else he had said. I lifted my head slowly, meeting his eyes again. Then why? This time, he did not answer immediately. His gaze moved briefly toward the window, then back to me. Measuring. Deciding. Choosing. Because you needed someone who would. The answer was simple, but it changed something. I felt it settle into me, into the space that had been empty before. I shifted slightly, sitting up a little straighter despite the dull pressure in my ribs. My body felt different this morning. Not healed. Not whole. But mine. More than it had been in a long time. What happens now? I asked. The question felt different this time. Not driven by fear. Not by survival. By something else. By choice. He stood slowly, his movement smooth, controlled. He walked a few steps closer, stopping at a distance that felt intentional. Respectful. Now, he said, his voice steady. You decide what you want to keep. I frowned slightly, not fully understanding. Keep what? His gaze did not waver. Your life. Your name. Your silence. Your voice. Each word landed separately, deliberately, like he was placing them in front of me one by one. I felt my chest tighten again, but not from pain. From the weight of the question. Because for the first time, I realized I had options. Real ones. Not just ways to survive. Ways to choose. I looked down at my phone again, then back at him. And if I do not know yet. He did not hesitate. Then you take your time. The words were simple, but they carried something I had not had before. Permission to not have the answer immediately. Permission to not rush. Permission to exist without fear deciding everything for me. I exhaled slowly, my shoulders lowering just a fraction more. The room felt different again. Not just safe. Open. Like it was waiting for me to fill it with something new. Something that belonged to me. And for the first time since that message, I did not feel like I had made a mistake. I felt like I had found something I did not even know I was looking for. Choice felt heavier than fear. Fear had always been simple. Immediate. It told me what to do, where to go, how to survive the next second. Choice was different. It asked questions I was not ready to answer. I sat there, the morning light stretching across the floor, my phone still resting loosely in my hand. And for the first time in a long time, nothing was telling me what to do next. He stood a few feet away, watching without pressing, without filling the silence. That mattered more than I expected. Most people filled silence because they were uncomfortable with it. He let it exist, like he trusted me to find something inside it. I looked down at my hands, turning the phone slowly between my fingers. My life. My name. My silence. My voice. The words echoed again, each one carrying weight I had not fully understood until now. My life. That one was the hardest. Because I was not sure what it even looked like anymore. Not without the constant tension. Not without calculating every word, every step, every reaction. If I go back, I said slowly, my voice quieter than before but steadier. Nothing changes. It was not a question. It was something I already knew. He did not interrupt. He did not correct me. He let the truth sit there. And if I do not go back? I trailed off, my breath catching slightly as I tried to finish the thought. Because that was the part one did not know. The part that did not have a clear shape yet. His voice came after a moment. Then everything does. Simple. Direct. No exaggeration. No comfort added to soften it. Just truth. I lifted my head, meeting his eyes again. That sounds like a risk. He nodded once. It is. No hesitation. No attempt to make it sound easier than it was. I let out a slow breath, my shoulders lowering just slightly. And you are okay with that? His gaze did not waver. I am used to risk. There was something in the way he said it. Not pride. Not warning. Just fact. Like risk was not something he avoided. It was something he moved through. I studied him for a second longer, trying to understand the man who had answered a message that was never meant for him, and turned it into this. Safety. Space. Choice. You still have not told me your name, I said quietly. It felt important now, not because I needed to label him, but because I needed something real to hold on to. Something that was not just presence and control and decisions made before I could understand them. He watched me for a second, like he was weighing something I could not see. Then he spoke. Victor. The name settled into the room. Into me. It fit. Not just the sound of it. The weight of it. Victor. I repeated it silently, letting it anchor him into something more than just a voice that had appeared when I needed it most. Amara, I said, even though he already knew. He inclined his head slightly, acknowledging it like it mattered. Like I mattered. The silence returned again, but it felt different this time. Not empty. Not waiting. Just there. I shifted slightly on the couch, testing my body again. The pain was still present, but it no longer controlled every movement. I could sit up straighter. I could breathe deeper. Small things. But they felt like progress. If I stay, I said slowly, choosing each word carefully. What does that mean? His gaze held mine, steady, unflinching. It means you are under my protection. The words were simple, but they carried something deeper. Something final. Protection. Not ownership. Not control. Protection. I noticed the difference immediately. And what does that cost? I asked it because I had to. Because nothing in my life had ever come without a cost. Because safety had always been something I had to trade for something else. His expression did not change, but something in his eyes sharpened slightly. You are not a transaction. The words landed harder than I expected. Not defensive. Not offended. Just firm. Like he was correcting something fundamental. I swallowed, the tension in my chest shifting again. That is not how it works where I come from, I said quietly. He stepped closer then. Not invading. Not crowding. Just enough to close the distance slightly. Then where you come from is not where you are anymore. The statement was calm. Certain. Final. I felt it settle into me, into the space that had been uncertain just moments ago. Not erasing my past, but separating it from what came next. I looked down again, my fingers brushing lightly against the fabric of the blanket still around me. It felt real. Everything here felt real in a way I had not expected. What if I leave later? I asked. After I figure it out. His answer came without hesitation. Then you leave. I looked up quickly, searching his face for something that would contradict that. Something that would reveal a hidden condition. There was nothing. Just the same steady certainty. No conditions, I pressed. He shook his head once. The only condition is that you leave safe. The simplicity of that answer made something in my chest loosen. Not completely. Not all at once. But enough. Enough to breathe a little easier. Enough to consider something I had not allowed myself to consider before. Staying. Not because I had to. Not because I had nowhere else to go. But because I could. I leaned back slightly, my body finally allowing itself to relax into the space around me. The room did not feel temporary anymore. It felt open, like it was waiting for me to decide what it would become. I looked at him again, at Victor, at the man who had stepped into a moment that was not his and changed everything without asking for permission. I do not know what I want yet, I admitted. He nodded once. You do not have to. The words settled into me, quiet and steady. I exhaled slowly, my eyes drifting toward the window again, the city still moving outside like nothing had changed. But everything had. And for the first time, I was not afraid of what came next. I was just unsure. And somehow, that felt like a beginning. It is strange how quickly a place can start to feel like it is watching you back. Not in a threatening way. Not like the apartment I left behind, where every wall felt like it was holding its breath. This was different. The room did not close in on me. It waited. Quiet. Patient. Like it already knew I had not decided yet. I sat there longer than I meant to, my eyes drifting between the window and the floor, and then back to him. Victor did not move much. He did not need to. His presence filled the space without effort, like everything around him adjusted instead of the other way around. I noticed the small things now. The way he never turned his back completely. The way his attention shifted before anything happened. The way silence around him felt intentional, not empty. You are thinking too hard, he said after a while. His voice cut through my thoughts without breaking them. Just redirecting. I let out a small breath. Almost a laugh, but not quite. I do not know how not to. That was the truth. Thinking ahead had always been survival. Predicting reactions. avoiding consequences, staying one step ahead of something I could not control. He nodded slightly, like he understood more than I had said. Then start smaller, he said. I frowned a little. Smaller. He gestured lightly toward me, not touching, just indicating. The next hour, not the next year. The idea felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, but also possible. I looked down at my hands again, flexing my fingers slightly. They did not shake the way they had before. Another small thing. Another quiet change. Okay, I said, more to myself than to him. The next hour. That felt manageable. I could handle an hour. Maybe. A soft knock came at the door again. This time I noticed how I reacted. Or rather, how I did not. My shoulders did not tense. My breath did not catch. I just looked up. Victor did not move immediately. He glanced at me first. A silent check. I nodded once, surprising myself with how natural that felt. Come in, he said. The door opened, and a woman stepped inside this time. Mid-30s, composed, carrying a folded set of clothes and something else I could not see at first. Her eyes found me immediately, but not in a way that made me feel examined. Just acknowledged. These should be more comfortable, she said, placing the clothes gently on a nearby chair. Her voice was calm, neutral, like she had done this before. Like this was normal. I glanced at the clothes. Soft fabric. Simple. Nothing like what I had been wearing. Nothing like the life I had left behind. Thank you, I said quietly. She gave a small nod, then stepped back without lingering, her attention shifting briefly to Victor before she left the room as quietly as she had entered. The door closed behind her, and the room settled again. I looked at the clothes for a long second. Changing felt symbolic. More than just comfort. It meant letting go of what I had been wearing when everything broke. It meant stepping further into this space, into this choice. Victor watched me, but he did not say anything. He did not push. He never pushed. That was what made it harder and easier. I stood slowly, my body protesting just enough to remind me it was still healing. I picked up the clothes, the fabric soft under my fingers, unfamiliar but not unwelcome. I hesitated for a second, then looked at him. He understood without words. He turned away. Not dramatically, not exaggerated. Just enough to give me privacy without leaving the room. That mattered more than I expected. I moved carefully, changing slowly, each movement deliberate. The new clothes felt lighter, easier, like I could breathe in them without effort. When I finished, I sat back down, adjusting slightly until I found a position that did not pull at my ribs. Better, he said without turning. Not asking. Knowing. I nodded, even though he could not see it yet. Yeah. He turned back then, his gaze sweeping over me once, quick, efficient, not lingering. Just confirming. Then it settled again, steady as before. Good. The word was simple, but it carried something grounding. Like I had done something right. I leaned back slightly, my body responding to the comfort more than my mind had expected. The tension in my shoulders eased another fraction. I noticed how quiet my thoughts had become. Not gone. Just quieter. What happens outside this room? I asked after a moment. The question had been building in the back of my mind. Not urgent, but present. He took a second before answering, his gaze shifting briefly toward the window, then back to me. The world continues. I almost smiled at that. That is not what I meant. I know. He stepped a little closer, stopping at that same careful distance. Outside this room, there are people who would look for patterns, for changes, for absence. My chest tightened slightly, but not from fear, from awareness. And me not being there is a change. He nodded once. Yes. I looked down again, my fingers brushing lightly against the fabric of my sleeve. So they will look. They might. He did not exaggerate it. He did not soften it. Just truth again. I lifted my head slowly. And you will stop them? It was not really a question. He held my gaze. I will manage what needs to be managed. The wording was precise. Not a promise of control. Not a guarantee. Just capability. I studied him for a second longer, then nodded. Because I believe that too. Not blindly. Not completely. But enough. The room felt steady again. Grounded. The next hour. I focused on that. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Just this moment. This space. This choice. I leaned back slightly, letting my body settle into the couch again, my breathing even, my mind quieter than it had been in a long time. Victor remained where he was, present without pressure, watching without demanding. And for the first time, I realized something I had not expected. I was not just safe here. I was becoming something different. Something I had not been allowed to be before. And I did not know if I should be afraid of that or grateful. It is easier to breathe when no one is waiting for you to fail. I did not realize how much of my life had been built around that feeling until it was gone. The room stayed quiet, but not in a way that made me listen for what might break it. It held steady, like it trusted itself not to change without warning. I sat there, letting the stillness settle deeper into me, my fingers resting loosely against the fabric of the new clothes, my body no longer bracing for something I could not see. Victor had not moved much, but I was aware of him in a way that felt different now. Not as a threat, not as something unpredictable, as something constant. That word felt strange in my mind. Constant had never been something I associated with people. I shifted slightly, adjusting my position on the couch, testing the range of movement my body would allow. The discomfort was still there, but it no longer dictated everything. I could move without stopping. I could breathe without counting every second. Small victories, but they felt bigger than they should have. "You are adjusting," he said quietly. I looked up at him, a small frown forming before I could stop it. "That sounds like you were studying me." There was no accusation in my voice, just curiosity. He did not react defensively. He rarely reacted at all. "I am observing," he said. "There is a difference." I tilted my head slightly, considering that. "What is the difference?" He took a step closer, stopping at that same careful distance he always maintained. "Studying assumes I need to change something. Observing means I am making sure nothing harms you." The words settled into me slowly. I felt them more than I understood them at first. Then something shifted. Because no one had ever explained it like that before. No one had separated attention from control. "And if something does need to change," I asked quietly. His gaze held mine, steady, unshaken. "Then you decide that." The answer came without hesitation, like it had already been decided long before I asked the question. I looked down again, my fingers tracing the edge of the couch. My mind moved slower now, not because I was tired, but because I was no longer rushing ahead of myself. "That still feels strange," I admitted. "It should," he said. I glanced up at him again. "Why?" "Because you are not used to being the one who decides." The truth in that hit deeper than I expected. Not sharp, not painful, just undeniable. I exhaled slowly, my shoulders lowering just a fraction more. "You make it sound easy." "It is not easy," he said. "It is simple." I almost smiled at that. "There is a difference." He nodded once. "There is always a difference." The room settled again, but this time the silence felt lighter. Not waiting, not heavy, just open. I leaned back slightly, letting my head rest against the cushion for a moment. My eyes closed briefly, not from exhaustion, but from something closer to relief. When I opened them again, he was still there, still watching, still not leaving. That mattered more than I wanted to admit. "Do you always stay like this?" I asked, my voice softer now, less guarded. "Watching." He considered the question for a second, not avoiding it, just choosing the answer carefully. "When it matters," he said. I let that settle, my gaze drifting toward the window again. The light had shifted slightly, the day moving forward without asking for permission. It felt strange to be inside it without being pulled by it. "And this matters," I said quietly. It was not really a question. He did not treat it like one. "Yes." The certainty in that single word did something to me. Something quiet but steady. I shifted again, sitting up a little straighter, my body responding more easily now. "What about you?" I asked after a moment. He tilted his head slightly. "What about me?" "Do you ever stop?" I said. "Or are you always this?" I gestured slightly, trying to find the word. Controlled. Present. Unshaken. He understood anyway. "No," he said simply. I blinked, surprised by how quickly he answered. "No. Not in the way you mean," he clarified. I studied him for a second longer. "That sounds exhausting." For the first time, something almost like amusement flickered in his expression. Not a smile. Not fully. Just a shift. "It is necessary." I leaned back again, my head tilting slightly as I considered that. "For you?" I said. He nodded once. "For what I do." I did not ask what that was. Not yet. I had a feeling the answer would not be simple. And for the first time, I was not rushing to know everything. I was learning to sit in not knowing. That felt new. And strangely, peaceful. The room held that quiet between us, not empty, not tense. Just shared. I looked at him again, really looked this time. At the way he stood. The way he carried himself. The way nothing about him felt accidental. You knew I would stay? I said slowly. His gaze did not waver. I knew you would need time. I frowned slightly. That is not the same thing. No, he agreed. It is not. I held his gaze for a second longer, searching for something I could not quite name. Then I looked away again, my fingers brushing lightly against the fabric of my sleeve. I am still deciding, I said quietly. He nodded once. Good. The word was simple, but it did not feel dismissive. It felt approving, encouraging, like deciding was the point, not the outcome. I exhaled slowly, my shoulders lowering another fraction. The tension that had lived in my body for so long was loosening piece by piece. Not gone, not completely, but changing. I leaned back again, my eyes drifting toward the ceiling for a moment before returning to him. This is the first time, I said softly, almost to myself. He did not ask what I meant. He waited. I swallowed, my throat tightening just slightly. The first time I am. Not trying to survive the next second. The words hung there, heavier than anything I had said before. He stepped closer, just enough to shift the space between us again. Not overwhelming. Not intrusive. Just present. Then you are already doing more than you think, he said. I closed my eyes for a second, letting that settle. Letting it sink into a part of me that had been closed off for too long. When I opened them again, the room felt different. Not just safe. Not just quiet. It felt like a beginning. And for the first time, I did not feel like I was running from something. I felt like I was standing still. Choosing. Becoming. The quiet did not feel fragile anymore. It felt earned. Like every second of it had been fought for in ways I did not fully understand yet. I sat there, my breathing steady, my body no longer resisting itself, and something inside me shifted again. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. Just firmly. Like a decision forming without needing to be forced. Victor had not moved far. He rarely did. But his presence felt closer now, not because of distance, but because I was no longer pushing it away. That was new. I noticed it the same way I noticed my breath earlier. Small, subtle, but undeniable. I leaned forward slightly, my elbows resting against my knees, my fingers lacing together loosely. My body felt more like mine with each passing minute. Not borrowed. Not controlled. Mine. If I stay, I said slowly, my voice steady but quieter than before, I do not want to disappear. The words surprised me a little as they came out. Not because I did not mean them, but because I had not planned to say them yet. He did not react immediately. He rarely did. He let the words sit, giving them weight before responding. Define disappear, he said. Not dismissing. Not challenging. Asking. That mattered. I exhaled softly, my gaze dropping to my hands as I searched for the right way to explain something I had not fully put into words before. I do not want to become someone who just exists here, I said. Hidden. Quiet. Untouched by anything outside these walls. I lifted my head again, meeting his eyes. I have been invisible before. I am not going back to that. The truth in that settled. Deep. Not sharp. Not defensive. Just clear. He watched me for a second longer, something shifting behind his expression. Not surprise. Not resistance. Something closer to respect. You will not disappear, he said. The certainty in his voice did not feel like control. It felt like acknowledgement. Like he understood exactly what I was asking without me needing to explain further. I studied him carefully. That sounds like a promise. It is, he said. No hesitation. No conditions attached. Just a promise. I felt something in my chest loosen again. A small release of tension I had not realized I was still holding. But I did not let it settle too easily. I had learned that promises meant different things depending on who made them. And what does that look like? I asked. Staying here, but not disappearing. He took a step closer, not enough to crowd me, just enough to shift the space between us again. Always controlled. Always intentional. It looks like you choosing what parts of your life continue, he said. And what parts end. The words were simple, but they carried something heavier beneath them. Choice again. Always choice. I let that sit for a moment, my mind moving through it slower than before, not rushing to conclusions. And you? I said, my voice softer now, less guarded but more direct. Where do you fit in that? His gaze held mine, steady, unshaken. Where you allow me to. The answer was immediate. Precise. And it changed something. Because it did not place him above the decision. It placed him inside it. Under it. Within my choice. I leaned back slightly, absorbing that, letting it settle into the part of me that was still learning how to trust something without needing to fight it first. You make it sound simple again, I said quietly. He shook his head once. It is not simple, he said. It is clear. I almost smiled at that. The difference mattered. Clear meant I could see it, even if I was not ready to walk it yet. A soft silence followed, but it did not stretch uncomfortably. It held, steady, like the room itself was listening. I shifted slightly, my body moving more easily now, the stiffness fading into something manageable. There is one more thing, I said after a moment. His attention sharpened just slightly. Not visibly, but I felt it. Say it. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. I do not want to be protected if it means I lose my voice. The words landed heavier than I expected, because they were not just about now. They were about everything before. Every time I had stayed quiet because it was easier, safer, necessary. I met his eyes again, not looking away this time. I need to be able to speak, to decide, even if I am wrong. He did not respond immediately. He rarely did. He let the weight of that sit between us, giving it the space it deserved. Then he nodded once. You will, he said. The certainty in his voice did not override my words. It supported them, strengthened them. Even if it conflicts with what you want. I pressed, needing to hear it clearly. He did not hesitate. Especially then. The answer settled into me in a way nothing else had yet. Not just reassurance. Alignment. Like he was not trying to shape me into something easier to manage. He was preparing to stand beside something harder to control. Me. I exhaled slowly, my shoulders lowering another fraction, the tension easing in a way that felt deeper this time. Not temporary. Not surface level. Real. I leaned back again, my gaze drifting toward the window, the city still moving beyond it, unaware of the shift happening inside this room. Then I am not afraid of staying, I said quietly. The words surprised me as much as they settled me, because fear had been the constant before, the thing that decided everything. And now it was not. Not in the same way. Not in control. I looked back at him, at Victor, at the man who had stepped into a moment that was never meant for him and changed the direction of everything that followed. I paused, searching for the word. Learning. He nodded once. Good, he said again. And this time, it felt different. Not approval. Not expectation. Just recognition. I leaned back fully into the couch, my body finally settling into the space without resistance. The room felt steady. Open. Mine in a way I had not expected. And for the first time, I was not thinking about leaving. I was thinking about what staying could become. It is strange how a life can change without anything around you moving. The city outside the window was still the same. Cars passed. People walked. Light shifted across buildings like it always did. But inside that room, inside me, nothing was the same anymore. I sat there, the quiet no longer something I was testing, no longer something I was waiting to break. It held. And for the first time, I trusted it too. My fingers rested loosely against the fabric of my sleeve, tracing it without thinking, grounding myself in something simple, something real. My body felt different now. Not just safer. Not just calmer. Mine. Fully mine. Victor had not moved much, but I felt him there in a way that no longer made me tense. It steadied me. That realization should have scared me. Depending on someone. Letting someone be that close to the edges of what I was rebuilding. But it did not. Not in the way it used to. I looked at him again, really looked this time, not as the man who had stepped into a moment and taken control of it, but as someone who had chosen to stay in it after. That was the part that mattered. You are still here, I said quietly. The words came out softer than I expected, but they carried something heavier beneath them. Not surprise. Not doubt. Just recognition. He met my gaze, steady as always. I said I would be. Simple. Direct. But it was not just about the words. It was about the way he had not left. Not when I fell asleep. Not when the immediate danger passed. Not when there was nothing left for him to fix. He stayed. I let out a slow breath, my shoulders lowering completely this time. The last piece of tension I had been holding finally releasing. Most people leave when it is over, I said. He tilted his head slightly. This is not over. The answer came without hesitation. Like there was no version of this where it ended the moment I was safe. I frowned slightly, not in disagreement, but in curiosity. What is it then? He took a step closer, not enough to change the distance drastically, but enough to shift the space between us again. It is the part where you decide what happens next, he said. The words settled into me, Familiar now, but still heavy. Choice. Always choice. I looked down for a moment, my fingers pressing lightly against my palm as I considered that. Then I looked back up. And if I choose something you do not expect? He did not hesitate. Then I adjust. The simplicity of that answer caught me off guard again. No resistance. No control. Just adaptability. I studied him for a second longer, then nodded slowly. Because that was the first time someone had said that without making it sound like a compromise. It was not a compromise. It was respect. The room felt quieter again, but not empty. Full. Like something had settled into place without needing to be forced. I shifted slightly, sitting up straighter, my body responding easily now, no longer resisting movement. Then I choose this, I said. The words came out clearer than I expected. No hesitation. No second guessing. Just truth. His gaze sharpened slightly, not in surprise, but in focus. This, he repeated. I nodded once. Staying. Not because I have to. Because I want to. Saying it out loud changed something. It made it real in a way that thinking it had not. I felt it settle into me, steady and firm. Victor watched me for a second longer, something shifting behind his expression. Not control. Not possession. Something quieter. Something closer to approval, but not of me. Of the choice. Then you stay, he said. Not claiming it. Not defining it further. Just accepting it. I exhaled slowly, my shoulders relaxing fully, my body finally settling into the space without resistance. The room felt different again. Not just safe. Not just open. It felt mine. Not because it belonged to me, but because I had chosen to be in it. I looked toward the window again, the city still moving, still unaware of the shift that had happened inside me. And for the first time, I did not feel disconnected from it. I felt like I could step back into it when I was ready. Not as someone running. Not as someone hiding. As someone choosing. I turned back to him, my gaze steady now, not searching, not uncertain. What happens next? I asked. The question felt different this time. Not driven by fear. Not by survival. By possibility. He held my gaze, the silence stretching just enough to make the answer matter. Now, he said slowly, you learn what it means to live without asking permission. The words landed deeper than anything else he had said. Not loud. Not overwhelming. Just true. I felt something shift inside me again, not breaking, not cracking. Opening. Like a door I had not realized was there. I nodded once, the movement small but certain. Then I guess I have a lot to learn. For the first time, something close to a real smile touched his expression. Brief. Controlled. But real. I will make sure you do, he said. I leaned back slightly, letting that settle, letting the weight of everything that had changed finally rest where it belonged. Not on my chest. Not in my lungs. Somewhere steadier. Somewhere stronger. And as the light shifted across the room, soft and steady, I realized something I had not expected when I sent that message. I had not reached the wrong person. I had reached the moment my life stopped being something that happened to me and became something I chose.